At the doorstep of Europe, a violent revolution for freedom divided a country and moved Ukraine away from Russia's sphere of influence. Old historical allies became foes. Ukraine has been at war with pro-Russian separatists for more than 5 years. Despite this trauma, Ukraine's creative spirit is galvanized.
Тобто потрясіння особисто навіть в житті однієї людини, це завжди її штовхає на щось, на розвиток або на саморозвиток, я не знаю, деструкцію.
The shock of war and death actually injected people with this energy.
The revolution gave that push, to start like making our culture more visible.
Looking at Kiev, you might not know there is a war in this country. And old identities are being reformed as Ukraine's history is being erased and replaced.
History tells us that these kind of things are much accelerated by revolution and war.
I want to explore how a new creativity has emerged from the trauma of conflict, how Ukraine is shedding its Soviet past, and how its youth is laying down the roots of new beginnings. Join me on Compass as I discover Ukraine's creative revolution. During the Maidan Revolution, protests turned into deadly clashes on this square, which brought about a change in regime. That became a trigger for a war in East Ukraine, with Russian-backed separatists now in its 6th year. But Kiev doesn't look like the capital of a war-torn country. Instead, it looks like a cultural hotspot where artists are brimming with creativity. I want to find out, are they redefining Ukraine's identity? How do they experience the tensions of the conflict? And is Ukraine ready to leave its past behind?
Ukrainian people, we felt that something is going on, and we were like hoping that our ex-president Yanukovych will sign the association with Europe, because we felt we didn't want to be a part of Russia and we wanted to take another course. I felt that, okay, this is a start of something like absolutely new for me, first of all, like to feel our generation is developing, how strong we are like as people.
People were literally digging up the streets to get cobblestones as ammunition. At the end of the human chain, you had young men, I guess, typically, throwing the stones at the police. Well, art was very important during the Maidan protests. It was a kind of model of revolutionist carnival. You famously get this guy playing his piano in front of the militia. But it's also because art defines purpose, and you get a very interesting redefinition of Ukrainian symbols and historical artifacts. You also get a kind of post-colonial or even post-modern redefinition of broader culture. So yes, Lenin statues are taken down, but it's really interesting what goes in Lenin's place. That feeds into a kind of post-Maidan tradition of kind of art that is anti-Soviet, but also mocks the corruption of the old regime.
This is where a statue of the Russian revolutionary leader Lenin used to stand proudly on display. But in December 2013, protesters tore it down in anger, later replacing him with a golden toilet as a symbol for state corruption. It has since then become an exhibition site for political artwork.
Many people from small regions, from different places, they started coming, and it was creating that, a new map of Ukraine.
The atmosphere was different every day. There were big demonstrations to try and force Parliament into negotiation, political concessions, and they turned violent.
People were like cruelly hit on Maidan at the middle of the night, like young people. They just ran away.
Then mass slaughter, sniper fire raining down into the square.
The first victim of the Maidan Revolution was Diana's friend Sergei Nigoyan.
How we met with Sergei was actually we met in the end of December. It was quite cold at that time, and it was already 1 month of the revolution. And then I was just passing by one barricade, and he appeared and like just saying that, oh, I cannot let you go there. And then he smiled and stopped and said, like, because you are very beautiful. And we were just laughing. As a protester, he was very brave and strong for his, he was 20 years old at the time. He was really strong, and, with him, like just sitting next to him, I felt totally safe. I remember he told me that, okay, yeah, I will be here like till the very end, even if someone will be killed. So people start taking with them tires and also fuel them like with fire. So it was all in fire. That street, that place was like really like hell. And also there were these like Molotov cocktails. It was all like exploding. So it was all black, totally black. And I know that Sergei was there.
On the 22nd of January 2014, Sergei was shot dead.
In the morning, I switched on the TV and I've heard that he was the first victim. I mean, I couldn't believe it because this was something unbelievable for me, like that fact that something like this can happen in my country, just in the street where you could walk since being a child every day,
How did you deal with his death?
I was just really very alone. I was talking a lot with his mates, with the feeling that it cannot be he just gave his life for nothing.
And 5 years on, do you feel like Maidan was a success?
I think it was a need and it was a must. I don't regret that the revolution happened, even with such victims. People say that there is no revolution without victims. It gave another vision for all of us. Our society, Ukrainian society, has changed, that we started to search for new ways. We feel this responsibility of the victims which gave their lives, and we want change. The city is getting better, it's improving, it's progressing.
Sergei became a symbol of the revolution. He's featured on a mural painted by an international artist, which stands as a memorial to Sergei and those who fought for freedom. Since the Maidan Revolution, street art murals have transformed walls across Kiev, some of which are sponsored by the local municipality. I met the curator, who's responsible for most of them.
My name is Gio Leros. I'm a cinematographer and I'm art curator of murals in Kiev. We have couple murals before Maidan, maybe 7, 10 good murals in Kiev, but I think Maidan inspired many people to do something with themselves. Every work has some specific message. We have murals who care about the child or homeless guy. So all murals have a different message.
Той же самий проект Art United Us, як я зрозумів, його призначення було привернути до України увагу всього світу. Що ми є Україна, у нас відбувається війна за допомогою такого проекту.
For me, like a curator, most important thing to make a conversation between DNA of one mural and the person who stayed between the wall. Of course, when you put on one level what's happened before Maidan and on this side what's happened after Maidan, of course, it's your really art revolution.
Now, there are about 150 large murals scattered all over the city of Kiev. They've become a symbol for the change that's happening in the country.
When you live in the country, when the politics, it's a part of your life and it's all what's happened around you, like the war, the other things, of course it's some kind of inspired the people to do something.
The urban facade of the city is changing, but not everybody agrees with state-sponsored street art.
It is a very dangerous cultural phenomenon. The municipal power, with some really incompetent activists, they started this process of painting murals. However, it has nothing to do with street art, because it's official, it's not illegal, it's not spontaneous. If it comes from above, from the city government or something, it's not street art anymore. If we are talking about the urban material culture, we don't have any changes since Soviet times. We just it's only infrastructural degradation. So this is another soft power imitation of the change in the urban landscape. After Soviet Union, the urban infrastructure is in decline. So instead of making the really flat asphalt or something, to improve the living conditions, instead of that, they are painting pictures. So this is the imitation of the change, because people are interested, the people who live in Kiev are more interested in the improving of the life conditions.
And most of these murals that we're talking about are done by international artists. I wonder what you think about it as a local street artist yourself.
Well, as a local street activist, I would say this is very bad that most of the artists are from abroad, because they don't work with the local context. They have no idea what they're painting. They just painting beautiful pictures from the desktop pictures from their computers or something. It's a kitsch.
As a new form of street art is going up all over the city, old Soviet symbols and memories are being taken down and erased from Kiev's view.
2 years after the Maidan protests, there are 3 laws passed, so-called De-communisation package, which mandate several things. One is the removal of physical symbols of Soviet rule. There's a renaming aspect of the law, that any town or street or city in Ukraine with a Soviet name from a Bolshevik figure or whatever is supposed to get a new one. So Lenin streets are supposed to go, and those streets are supposed to be named after local heroes or Ukrainian Cossacks.
This mural is typical of the Soviet era, and for a long time, murals like these were the only form of street art in the city. But due to the ongoing conflict and changing attitudes towards Russia, it might also soon face the hammer.
I'm very opposed to the so-called De-communisation laws. I do agree with the need of de-Sovietization of our culture to a certain level. Of course, Lenin statues, I think, should be moved away from the public spaces, but in more civilized form. If you ask me about the murals, about the mosaics, which are part of the architectural facade of the buildings, I think that they should remain, because it's the markers of this epoch, and we should be aware of this time we are from.
I'm meeting Ches in his Soviet apartment block.
Hello, welcome to the concrete jungle.
Thank you.
He's a street artist from the northeast of Ukraine, now based in Kiev, who draws his inspiration from Soviet murals. What do you think about the decommunization that is happening here?
Це жахливо, коли їх руйнують, коли їх не зберігають. Я думаю, що ми їх маємо зберігати. Це частина нашої історії, і дуже крутого мистецтва. І культурно вони на мене дуже сильно впливали, тому що в них є крута композиція, кольори. І незважаючи на те, що сюжети можуть бути якимись пропагандистськими, це все рівно наша історія, і потрібно пам'ятати і зберігати. Мені вони подобались дуже. Вони мають цікаві образи, цікаві сюжети.
Do you think the way Ukrainians are dealing with trauma is through creativity?
Я думаю, що в першу чергу це пов'язано із революцією, і з війною, яка в нас відбувається на Сході. Такі великі потрясіння завжди дуже сильно впливають на людей, і вони стараються виражати себе, стараються привернути до себе увагу. За останні часи я помітив багато музичних команд, які з'явилися, постійно якась крута українська сучасна якісна музика, художники, література, фільми. Це все дуже сильно вплинуло. І тобто потрясіння особисто навіть в житті однієї людини, це завжди її штовхає на щось, на розвиток або на саморозвиток, я не знаю, деструкцію.
For some, music is the main creative product of conflict.
После этого, когда твою страну атакует другая страна, мне кажется, понятно, что надо делать. По крайней мере, так делали очень много людей.
DJ Topolsky is a Ukrainian DJ who started the drum and bass movement in Ukraine. When the war in the east broke out, he left the city life to fight in the trenches.
Сейчас там достаточно позиционная война, плюс сейчас уже нет мобилизованных, сейчас там больше контрактная армия. Не больше, там сейчас контрактная армия, в принципе, тех людей, которые сейчас есть, хватает для того, чтобы там было более-менее спокойно. Тогда было не особенно спокойно, а сейчас, в принципе, там достаточно спокойно, там есть профессиональные чуваки, которые этим занимаются. А сидеть и просто сейчас такой замороженный конфликт. Там просто есть линия фронта, стоят сепаратисты, через 200 метров или там 800 метров стоят наши. Мы можем стоять за километр, от километра до 8 километров стреляют наши минометы. И мы подъезжаем, когда надо, там стреляем и уезжаем. То есть мы не все время находимся в блиндажах. Слушай, как ни странно, там мне было очень хорошо. Когда просыпаешься, строит тебя командир, нас всех наш взвод строит, говорит, какие задания, кто что делает. Мы это делаем, потом ты идешь в наряд. Если, допустим, потом есть выезд, то поступает команда. Мы вечером выезжаем в линии фронта, распаковываем свои там девайсы. И все. И потом, если надо, стреляем, если не надо, не стреляем. И потом уезжаем. И так, все просто.
I wonder how that experience changed your relationship to music.
Изменило. Да, я стал играть более легкую музыку. В Украине очень много разной совершенно музыки. Есть техно-музыка, есть я занимаюсь драм-н-бейсом, есть много локальных сцен. Особенно сейчас это все популярно в Киеве. Особенно новое развитие, виток, кстати, стал после Майдана, именно во время Донбасса, после революции. После того, как Россия нас атаковала, мы зависели очень во многом и в культурном фронте от России. После этого мы обратили внимание на свою страну, сами на себя и открыли для себя много чего нового. И собственно, поэтому все эти новые сцены начали быть опять популярны в Украине. Потому что мы в свое время считались русские диджеи, потом украинские диджеи. И так было совсем. То есть были русские фильмы, все смотрели, а украинского кино не было. И так далее. А после этого люди начали обращать на свое. Но именно сейчас на многих, сейчас рассвет украинской музыки именно считаем именно поэтому. Потому что мы обратили взор внутри себя. То есть если раньше мы были отчасти как территория, то сейчас мы стали как нация. То есть именно Майдан изменил, что мы почувствовали, что мы не просто кто-то там, а мы украинцы.
I wanted to experience the booming drum and bass scene for myself, so I went to one of DJ Topolsky's events. It is my first night out in Kiev, and I can safely say that the rave culture here is actually quite cool, and the energy of the youth is amazing. In another part of the city, Kiev's creative energy is being used in a different and quieter way. One arts and culture centre aims to provide a platform for discussion through art, addressing issues that affect everyday life here. Izolatsiya is a cultural centre with exhibitions all year round. It used to be located in the city of Donetsk until pro-Russian separatists took over the complex, looted it, and then turned it into a training ground for their forces. Since then, the foundation has moved to Kiev, where it continues to provide an artistic space for the younger generation to discuss socioeconomic and political issues.
Unfortunately, in June 2014, our premises in Donetsk were seized by paramilitary groups of Donetsk People Republic. People with machine guns came to our territory with a paper claiming that this territory belongs to them. They turned our cultural center into prison and execution site. We found that most of our art pieces were destroyed.
Why were they so angry at Izolatsiya?
I think there are different reasons. One of them is, of course, that there is no place for free expression in this kind of totalitarian state that they want to build. From what we could see, people thought that we are actually American spies. This is a part of this kind of conspiracy.
Can I assume that arts and culture is being taken really seriously here, creating that much anger?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was the only independent source of other points of view to what's happening. You know, all the media was controlled by state before the revolution, and then it was immediately taken by Russian military units when they entered Donetsk, and there hasn't been any place for independently thinking people to come and to express their opinions. When the war started, people realized that it's also their responsibility, that they want to change their lives. They started to build venues, they started to organize events. In Maidan, people had opportunity to practice democracy, because in Soviet system you didn't have any right to practice democracy. And this was also the case for Ukraine, because all the generations that were raised in Soviet Union had this kind of problem of not wanting to participate in democracy. And then Maidan was basically a self-sustainable organism where people took responsibility.
The changes happened before the Maidan. Maidan it's not a starting point for the changes, but rather the logical result of the change.
And the Maidan protests were both cause and effect, really. The original motives for the protest changed into a different set of motives over time. But it became much more about redefining Ukraine, its identity, its relation to Russia, and its problems with corrupt rulers.
Ukrainian society is changing, but many feel like the changes haven't been fast enough in the past 5 years.
Ordinary Ukrainians haven't seen much of an improvement to their lives. Corruption is still a problem, although not as bad as it was before 2014, which is why people have taken a punt on Zelensky.
Volodymyr Zelensky, a comedian with no political experience, is Ukraine's new president, winning the election runoff by a landslide. In politics, as well as culture, Ukraine is witnessing a powerful reaction.
I am actually scared about the future. I think people, they're not aware of who they elect, that this is like the one who will lead our army also in some ways,
Ми хочемо спробувати щось нове, ті, хто голосує за Зеленського, тому що стара система нас не влаштовує.
I don't think that someone should blame Ukrainian people for their choice. I think this is the main principle of the democracy.
The conflict and revolution here have shaken up a nation. But in Kiev, it's a creative spirit that's making its mark.
Малюнок може змінити дуже кардинально простір, в якому він знаходиться, а також вплинути на глядачів.
While old Soviet symbols and ties to Russia are being torn apart,
You have a country trying to escape from or rewrite its Soviet past.
the face of the city is changing through art.
We started to search for new ways.
And a new identity is being formed.
We feel ourselves part of the world.
Ukraine has experienced the effects of revolution, the trauma of war, and even a shift in its national identity. It's been allied to its big brother Russia for years, but today the conflict between them continues. Despite this, or maybe because of it, there is a creative energy here, which is channeled towards rebuilding the country and creating something new.